Okay, we're all set. Just got the thumbs up from our IT director. So welcome to our Board of Ed meeting this evening. Thanks for joining us, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Markarian. Good evening. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of Bernards Township. Notice of the time and place of the meeting was provided, and copies of that resolution were forwarded to the official newspapers as designated by the Board of Education. And to the township clerk, and a copy of the notice was posted on the bulletin board at the Board of Education office in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Due to the public health emergency in the state of New Jersey, as declared in Executive Order 103, the board will be suspending normal meeting procedures this evening and conducting this virtual meeting. Directions for accessing the virtual public meeting were posted on the district website, www.bernardsboe.com. These same directions were posted at our intended but unavailable location. We very much welcome input from the public. Because this is a virtual meeting, public comment will be handled as follows. Instructions for submitting a public comment starting at 7 p.m. Email to BT, like Bernards Township, connect at bernardsboe.com or text 908-292-3047. Use public comment as the email subject or the start of the message. Indicate your first and last name and address. This is required for your public comment to be included. Please keep your comments to a maximum of approximately 3 minutes if they were to be read aloud. One note on the third item I mentioned with regard to your first and last name and address. This address should be your actual address and your real name, not a fictitious name. Our board attorney, Mr. Crute, is going to expound upon that for a second here, if you will, Mr. Crute.
Thank you, Madam President. The Bernardsville News reported today that someone apparently used a fake name and address, a residency address, when they submitted a public comment by email for the last board meeting. This is both disappointing and disturbing. During these difficult times, the board has made serious efforts to conduct its virtual meetings fairly and efficiently, and to provide the public a meaningful opportunity to make public comments during the meetings. We implore the public to please treat the opportunity for public comment as seriously as the board does, and to do so honestly and directly. Unfortunately, please also understand and be aware that some of the critical comments received by the board recently may not have been made in an honest and forthright manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crute. With that, of course. I'll just remind the public that the board has met an executive session prior to this public session, and we did salute the flag at that time. With that, our next order of business is I'm just trying to find the page in the agenda, is the student representative, Jimmy.
Did we do a roll call?
We didn't. My apologies. Could we have a roll call, please, Mr. McLaughlin?
Ms. Beckman? I'm sorry, Ms. Beckman? I can't.
Yes, here.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No?
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Salmon?
Here.
Mrs. White?
Here.
Mrs. McCune?
Here.
Mrs. Korn?
Here.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Here.
Mr. Markarian?
Here.
Mr. Syatt?
Here.
Ms. Fox?
Here.
Madam President?
Here. With that, Mr. Gao.
Hi, everyone. So I think last time I said that I didn't really have that many updates. This time, not so much. So there's quite a bit that's gone on in the last 2 weeks. First thing, I guess, is like the beginning of AP testing. This isn't really like a district-wide concern, but like with an online format, it's been pretty weird having to airdrop things to yourself in order to submit your APs, and plenty of students have run into issues there. But thankfully, the teachers have all been pretty supportive, and now we're more than halfway throughout all the tests. The next thing, I guess, was talking about like the Ms. Hudak, who sent out like a newsletter last week talking about all the different ways that the town is trying to recognize seniors, including like a banner and the lights and stuff like that. I know that as we continue to try and plan for prom and graduation and all the other events that we want to keep, there is a little bit of difficulty because we don't really know what's happening. There have been surveys that have been sent out and stuff like that. We in Student Gov have also been trying to like, create like virtual yearbooks and potentially create a day of like virtual school. I think I've talked about this like in an informal capacity. We're still like kind of working on it. We will be through Memorial Day weekend, but these are things we'd like to hopefully have the administration and the board, if necessary, like agree to as, initiatives that we can kind of create to create a sense of normalcy for the end of the school year. Beyond that, there's also a few logistical concerns that we have, including like how like the senior class will be able to like spend their funds, because I know there are like legal restrictions on what graduating seniors can and can't have in their class fund accounts and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty of like logistical stuff that has to be figured out in the near future for us to be able to, plan for things after our graduation date. I think another big shift is that I think like the political and social environment around social distancing has changed a little bit as we head into May. In some states, where like the orders are being lifted, now I think there's like this general sense that we have to find a way to start moving ahead. There are plenty of people, like students, who are like violating social distancing, and it's frustrating knowing that that's part of the reason why New Jersey's still under stay-at-home orders. But as individuals, even in our like limited capacity as student government officials, there's not much we could really do. But I think an important thing to keep into consideration is that like as we go forward, I think maybe as soon as Governor Murphy like lifts his stay-at-home order, there's going to be calls for what we can do as a school to plan, immediately, or like, get right back into the swing of things. But like without, like all the precautions taken, I think that's going to be like difficult. Some people who have, elderly relatives living at home, or who have like, pre-existing conditions, have said that they are afraid that we might try to move ahead with the graduation like quicker than we should. And then as a result, they may not feel comfortable or safe attending. So I think that as we start moving ahead, like I would say that between the side of like, going whenever we first can, which might be like, there might be a lot of like public pressure to do, versus being a little more conservative and taking a slower, more patient approach. I would definitely say that we should act a little like slower, but this is a discussion for like the months and weeks ahead as the decisions coming from the governor start to change. So just like a interesting, food for thought that I think we have to start considering. So that's all.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Jimmy? Okay. So then I think our next item is the superintendent's report. Mr. Markarian?
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to call for a motion in a second. We need to vote on these two items, and I'll be happy to explain each of them.
Can we have a motion, please? Mrs. Korn and Mrs. Wooldridge. Thank you. Mr. Markarian.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray. So yes, we have two items on the agenda. On an annual basis, we have to share our data with respect to the school student safety data, the SSD data. Our student safety data is reported on twice a year. We have to submit reports to the Department of Education, and we have to accept those reports twice a year, going along with the timeframes of those reports. So we have that on the agenda this evening. those two reports, kind of in a nutshell, or excuse me, those two items have a few different reports that go along with the student safety data system reports. And I did ask Mr. Syed to provide those reports for the board, but in summary, with respect to the public, I can share with you that we have done all of the required submissions of data to the state. With respect to our total reporting, we have to report our incidents, our behavioral incidents. We have to report our trainings completed, and we have to report the programs completed that we've done for our students. So Mr. Syed was kind enough to collect that information. We've done 35 trainings across the district with respect to bullying prevention. We have completed 18 different programs across the district with respect to all of our school programs. And Mr. Syed was kind enough to pass along our HIB incident data, and we're able to see that Ridge High School, we had 10 incidents, at William Annan 2, at Liberty Corner 1, and at Mount Prospect another 2. I'm sure Mr. Syed will help me out if I mess this up, but I did ask him to collect this data for us so that I could share it with you. Those incidents are also broken down with respect to not only HIB, but when we use the student safety data system, we also have to break down all of the incidents into bullying incidents, substance incidents, vandalism incidents, and violence incidents. So when we take a look at that, sometimes it's interesting to look at those across the board, and they break down as only one violence incident and one vandalism incident in the district in that reporting period. And those are both at Ridge, 4 substance incidents at Ridge, and a total of 6 confirmed HIB incidents across that reporting period 1. Just bringing up each piece here. So the reporting period 2 will be reported out in the fall. That represents our semester that starts after January, goes from January to June. We always report out on that in the fall. Now we're reporting out on reporting period 1. Typically in the spring, we report out on the fall semester. So I just wanted to clarify one thing too. I'm reading 2 different reports here, and the trainings and programs, I apologize, before I was reading the totals for one school.
Mount Prospect.
Yeah, sorry about that. I realize that. Thanks, Mr. Syed. Across the district, we had 76 trainings and 90 programs, because what I had read before was just Mount Prospect School. So sorry about that. I'm reading the column totals now correctly, Mr. Syed. My apologies. So basically, we have to report out on the trainings that we've done, the programs that we've done, and all of our violence, vandalism, and substance abuse combined with HIB into what's called the Student Safety Data System. And that represents the incidents that I just described. So those are the reports in item number 1 of the agenda under Superintendent's Report. Item number 2 is something very new. Obviously, it relates to the mode that we are in right now with respect to school being closed for this pandemic. And as a function of that, we have had to create closure plans for what amounts to a school health-related issue. These closure plans are essentially documents that describe how we're going to handle a variety of issues during the school closure. So everything from our basic instructional approach, how we're going to handle general education programs, how we're going to handle special education programs, how we're going to handle the distribution of our meals, what we're going to do with respect to our facilities, who our essential staff are. The State Department of Education has twice required us to board approve these school health related closure plans in response to a changing set of requirements, a changing checklist, if you will. So we recently received some new items that they wanted us to add to these school closure plans. We went through our school closure plans. We answered the questions that they wanted to add to the checklist. Some examples might include, as I mentioned before, essential staff. Who are they? Are we listing them? How are we handling meal deliveries? One of the new components that they asked us to add was what our plans were for the extended school year. Well, obviously, we're waiting to find out if we can bring students into buildings for the extended school year. So for a question like that, we basically have to explain that, we'll respond in accordance to what guidance we receive about what we're allowed to do. But in the interim, we're planning for both virtual and in person. And when we know which way we're allowed to go, obviously that will clarify what direction that we plan to move. There were also questions about summer. How are we going to try to support students? Are we looking at any opportunities that we might be able to do some supporting of lost instructional time where appropriate? How are we thinking about using Title I funds? What are our preliminary plans for the class of 2020 graduation ceremonies? So some things like that were additional questions that they wanted us to include in our closure plans. Obviously, there's a board resolution here, and we are posting these closure plans on the district website. In fact, they are already posted there. And all of this is done according to the memo that came along with the checklist of items to make sure that we were in compliance with the checklist of items that should be in the plans, and also that we were doing a board resolution to make sure that the board was aware of our plans and that we were posting those plans publicly on our district webpage. And that is the explanation for those two items.
Thank you, Mr. Markarian. Mr. McLaughlin, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Beckman? Ms. Schaefer?
Here. Yes.
Yes, for
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
sorry.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Okay, so then our next item is public comment on agenda items. Ms. Fox, do we have any public comment?
We don't have any questions right now.
Okay, thank you. Then moving on, our next item is approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Mrs. White and Mrs. McCune? And a roll call, please.
Ms. Beckman? Ms. Schaefer?
Did you hear?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Abstain on executive session, yes on regular session.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes,
Madam President?
thank you. So our next item is annual approvals and appointments. Can I have a motion, please? Mrs. Wooldridge and Mrs. Korn, And Mr. Markarian, did you want to add anything on any of these items?
Sure, I can give a brief explanation. Basically, what happens is on an annual basis, there are certain things that we have to do to designate almost our setup for the following year. So this involves things like naming our designated personnel, such as Mr. McLaughlin is named as our qualified purchasing agent, as our business administrator, authorized to award contracts. We do broad resolutions to adopt our curriculum and textbooks, our Board of Ed policies on an annual basis. A lot of these things are checklist items that we have to make sure that are in place, not only for the orderly operation of our school district, but also for compliance and really accountability perspective. We do periodically, as you know, on a 3-year basis, have a review done by the Department of Education, and they are looking to make sure that we have all of these officers designated in our district and that we are doing things on an annual basis to set up our operations from year to year. So we want to make sure that we approve our field trip destinations. We want to make sure that we have our policies and procedures in place. And we also name our associations with all of the different parent organizations in the district. And that's the purpose of these annual approvals and appointments.
Thank you. So Mr. McLaughlin, can we please have a roll call?
Ms. Beckman? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Madam President?
Thank you. And our next item is the Finance Committee report. Mr. Salmon?
So Finance met on May 13th, and the first item up for discussion was update on health benefits. Even though the district is self-insured, we pay Horizon an administrative fee for processing claims. Horizon is proposing a 68 cents per employee increase for administrative services, which amounts to a 1.5% increase overall. And in year 2 of being self-insured, the district held this cost flat, so an increase is not unexpected. This increase is covered by the district's proposed 2020-21 budget. Also within the discussion of health benefits was the district's stop-loss coverage. So for claims that exceed thresholds based on an individual basis or an aggregate basis, there is stop-loss coverage where Horizon would come in and pay claims. As previously reported this year, Horizon has paid approximately $600,000 in individual stop-loss claims, but zero in aggregate stop-loss claims. The individual stop-loss claims that Horizon has paid was the first time in several years that Horizon has paid this amount, or that we've invoked a stop-loss. Given the increase in individual stop-loss claims, the district's premium will increase for stop-loss coverage, but that's covered in the district's budget for 2020-2021. For the thresholds related to the aggregate component of stop-loss coverage, Horizon proposed a threshold to the district, and Mr. McLaughlin worked with Arthur Gallagher and their actuaries to compute our own estimates, and both groups projected the same estimate. So we will be continuing with Horizon for stop-loss coverage for 2020-2021. The committee discussed new legislation that's proposed that was passed in the Senate related to health benefits. It's S-2273. Under this proposed legislation, as of January 1st, 2021, all districts would be required to implement a new PPO style plan. All new employees to a district will automatically go into this plan and must stay in the plan for 7 years. Existing employees can continue to choose between legacy plan options or opt into the new plan. If an existing employee opts into the new plan, he or she can switch back to a legacy plan during a subsequent open enrollment period. The new proposed plan under 2273 changes out-of-network reimbursement, sets a per visit dollar amount for physical therapy, chiropractor, and acupuncture, and implements a mandatory generic prescription plan. Again, this is proposed legislation and has not been signed by the governor. The committee also met virtually with a transportation consultant, Mr. Jerry Ford, who is helping the district evaluate its transportation needs for the upcoming school year, as well as discussing how transportation may change if the district moves into a change in start times. We also discussed other potential legislation related to previously enacted legislation, which was S 2337. Under this law, districts were required to pay all contractors, even if they were not providing service. However, the state legislature is now looking at S 2350, which would exempt districts from making certain contractual payments based on a variety of criteria having to do with, for example, the CARES Act and funding under that mechanism. Mr. McLaughlin is working with council to understand the possible impact of S 2350 if that is ever signed. The last item for discussion was a facilities update. The Ridge High School middle gym floor was the first sub-item needs to be replaced completely. The district's been doing spot repairs for several years. Mr. McLaughlin obtained a proposal from Gillespie Flooring for $102,000 to completely replace the subfloor, floor, and fittings for volleyball and gymnastics equipment. The district can award the contract because it's within the market cost for similar projects, and Gillespie is a pre-approved contractor for these services within the Middlesex Regional ESC purchasing program. We have money in the budget this year to accommodate this cost. The project takes 5 to 6 weeks and will start the week of May 18th, so this week. The second item under the facilities update was the restrooms. All staff and student restrooms in the district will have the following hardware installed: automatic paper towel dispensers, which will begin installation next week; automatic soap dispensers, which will begin installation in early June; hand sanitizers, which will begin installation in early June; and no-touch faucets, which will be installed in June and July. All the installations will be performed by Aramark. An agenda item related to workers' compensation and the COVID-19 pandemic was tabled for the next meeting given time constraints. The items that are on the agenda tonight are several items that are typically there, and then a bunch of items related to reappointment and approval of various vendors and/or programs that the district uses each year. So 1 through 3 are standing items. Number 4 is the annual designation of check signers in the district. Number 5 recognizes groups and organizations so that they can be covered by the district's insurance policy. Number 6 is approval of state-approved contractors for procurement of goods and services. Number 7 designates the Burnersville News, Courier News, and Star Ledger as the official district newspapers. Number 8 designates depositories for district investments. Number 9 approves tax shelter annuity companies. Number 10 maintains membership in certain purchasing co-ops. Number 11 approves the facility use fee schedule used by the district. Number 12 approves the subscription busing rate for 2020-21. Number 13 approves the safety grant program the district uses. Number 14 appoints Adam Scudieres as the board attorney. Number 15 appoints Arthur Gallagher for property and casualty insurance services. Number 16 awards custodial and maintenance contracts to Aramark for 2020-21. Number 17 authorizes the district to go to bid for food services for the 2021 school year. Number 18 approves the contract with Educational Data Services to provide bidding services. Number 19 appoints Gallagher Benefit Services for insurance broker and employee health benefits services. Number 20 appoints Murphy McKeon as counsel for construction and public contract matters. Number 21 appoints Phoenix Advisors for annual financial advisory services. Number 22 appoints Strauss Esme as policy service providers. Number 23 appoints Wison Company as the district auditors. Number 24 appoints Anthony Scarillo as the board's labor counsel. Number 25 approves the contract with Dr. Matthew Spiesler as district physician. Number 26 approves the contract with Dr. Robert DeCastino and Stephen A. Hunt as the football team physicians. Number 27 approves the contract with Dr. Silberman. Number 28 appoints Michael Patrizio as the treasurer of school monies. Number 29 approves the tuition rates for districts that send students to our district. Number 30 renews the contract with Delta Dental for dental services. Number 31 appoints Horizon as the stop loss coverage provider. Number 32 appoints Horizon as the medical claims administrator. And then number 33 and 34 are related to student evaluations. Number 35 approves an out-of-district placement. Number 36 approves the contract with Gillespie to replace the Ridge High School middle gym floor. And number 37 approves our coordinated transportation services agreement with Union County Educational Services Commission for 145 in-district ESY students. And that's it.
Okay, so I think I forgot to request a motion for the finance items before Mr. Salmon began his report. So if we could have a motion, please, Mrs. McCune and Mrs. Beckman, thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Mr. Salmon about the report? No questions? Okay, Mr. McLaughlin, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Beckman? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mrs. White? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Mrs. White?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes,
Madam President.
thank you. Our next item is the Personnel Committee report. The Personnel Committee met this past Friday, and while the minutes are complete, the full board has not had an opportunity to review them yet, so I'll report out on that meeting next time. If we could have a motion for the personnel items on the agenda, please. Mrs. Wooldridge and Mr. Salmon. Board members, does anyone have any questions on the personnel items? Or Mr. Markarian, is there anything you wanted to comment on?
So no particular comments. However, we do have a couple folks that we might want to congratulate by way of these personnel agenda items. One of which is Jenna Hawkes. Jenna, you will notice that she is resigning. That's sad for us. Jenna's a wonderful assistant principal that's been at Liberty Corner for quite some time. She's been an excellent right-hand woman for Dr. Oliver there. She's going to be sorely missed, but we do congratulate her. She has earned a principalship at an elementary school in Caldwell, West Caldwell. And the second item that you may notice is that Jane Costa is retiring in September. I believe it was September 1. And we wish Jane the best. She's been a principal in our district, and she's been here a long time, and we really look forward to celebrating her retirement with her in September.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Beckman?
Lauren?
Ms. Beckman?
Yes. Hello, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes,
Madam President.
thank you. And then our next item is the Policy Committee report. Mrs. Korn?
Policy didn't meet.
But we do have a couple of things on for second reading, and I don't know if anyone wanted. It was the hold on a second. I had to the curriculum content, right? Which was revised, and also the attendance regulations. Hold on. And did you want me to go over them, what they were, or I could read the curriculum content was the 2 new statutes that were recently approved and codified, the financial literacy and then the history of disabled and LGBT persons in middle and high school curriculum. And they originally put under health and phys ed, but they've been moved to the curriculum content policy. And then the attendance was just for absence to the makeup time, that students are allowed to make up missed work for each 1 day of absence, but no less than 2 days. And we added the second part for clarification to match the homework policy. And those are the 2 regulations for second reading today. Anyone have any questions?
Okay, I should have asked for this in the beginning. Can we please have a motion? Anyone? Mrs. Beckman and Mrs. Schaefer. And Mrs. Korn, that was it? There was nothing else?
Yeah, we didn't have a meeting.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You said
So we'll
that.
have our next meeting. Not sure when it is. Probably next week or 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then
So then Mr. McLaughlin, can we please have a roll call on those 2 items, please?
Ms. Beckman? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Madam President?
Thank you. And then our next item is the curriculum committee report. The curriculum committee met and the minutes have not yet been viewed by the full board. So those will be reported out at the next meeting. And that brings us to the wellness committee report. Mrs. White?
Wellness met on April 30th. And we had counseling updates on both the mental health and the wellness supports in K through 12th grade. Each department is having district-wide weekly meetings at elementary, middle, and the high school level, as well as meetings with SACs. It was reported that students that were struggling before distance learning are still struggling and are on the counselor's radar. The challenges remain the same, which is finding ways to connect and circle back and collaborate with building administrators and counselors. Conversation is taking place to find ways to connect on social levels as kids are really missing each other and their teachers. At the elementary level, some ideas that are being attempted virtually are playing games like Connect 4, Tic-Tac-Toe, Mancala, reading aloud books, guided imagery and mindfulness videos, Screencast-O-Matic with classroom guidance lessons, Google Classroom and recording of lessons so students can see teachers, and Lunch Bunch, where the counselors have reached out to parents, and some are eager for this to happen, while others do feel it's just something else that they would have to do. At WAMS, they're having mindful moments and Lunch Bunch groups virtually. And Mindful Moments had high participation during lunch this year when we were in session at school, especially for 6th and 7th graders who might or tend to get overwhelmed in the cafeteria. So they were going to be trying this virtually, and that has started. It's a fun place to connect, and the counselors will have the ability to see who would like to log in. Logistics are still being determined, such as how many counselors are going to be involved. As for Lunch Bunch, one concern revolves around the confidentiality of these groups. However, Mr. Treasy feels that this is a way to reach students who are feeling socially unconnected. For students who've come to Lunch Bunch earlier in the year, their social connection used to be just showing up to these groups, and he is eager to offer this again. At Ridge, a new SAC will be starting May 18th, which is today, who has clinical experience. She will be able to focus individually with students who are feeling isolated and disconnected. There are a group of students who were happy and engaged prior to our closure, but now are not, and this needs to be addressed. In particular, seniors need access to their counselors, but counselors have been busy with junior conferences. The uncertainty and unknown is particularly difficult. Counselors had noticed that seniors were moving through the stages of grief over what they've lost and moved from denial to sadness. Before we left in March, the Culture and Climate Committee, which consists of SACs, counselors, teachers, and administrators, began discussing ideas of things to do for seniors, and this will continue to be an area of focus. We were provided with an update on junior conferences, which have continued to take place with students virtually and will wrap up sometime mid-May, which is not very different from the time frame of prior years. Juniors have been provided with the links to College Packet A and advised of the time frame in which it should be completed. There is much uncertainty in the landscape of college admissions due to the coronavirus. The National Association of College Admissions Counseling is continually discussing changes that may or may not occur. Therefore, it's necessary to address with student changes that may or may not occur as school becoming test optional, ways in which to visit schools in person or virtually, and even whether the usual yearly visits from college admissions will or can occur. Some schools are pushing up deadlines because it could take much longer to review applications in the fall. Questions are arising as to the impact of transcripts, as many schools are only given pass-fail grades now. A close eye and ear will be kept so as to best advise juniors during their college search and application process. Counselors continue to provide resources on their distance learning site to help inform families. Summer may need to be used to repurpose focus on how to advise the class of 2021. Next, we had a discussion on FaceTime with staff during distance learning, and the plans are continually being reviewed and adjusted. Feedback results were primarily positive from a survey that had been sent home. One commonality is the request for added face-to-face interaction. It's important to be mindful that some teachers' situations at home make this difficult. Some teachers are not as comfortable as others with technology or virtual lessons, and most are doing the best that they can. Often teachers are offering virtual lessons and only 1 or 2 students show up. But despite the low attendance, teachers have been asked to continue scheduling these face-to-face opportunities. Ideas have been provided by principals and supervisors to teachers that have been identified as struggling with virtual teaching. And Ms. Fox has put together a list of activities that teachers have done, as well as a list of possible 5 to 10 minute FaceTime activities that can be utilized. And last, the current work on life-ready skills as it relates to the 21st century and career planning was shared. This topic can fit into multiple areas of discussion, but we felt wellness was a good starting point before this can be addressed in curriculum. At a previous wellness meeting, Ms. Smith shared information on a sophomore lesson related to careers and the utilization of Naviance that has been revised and implemented. The plan was to continue to work on lessons related to this topic. A life-ready goals and objectives framework from Naviance has been given to our district with curriculum to use for free due to the pandemic that has materials for all grade levels. This information may be merged into Genesis. Discussion took place as to what career wellness planning was currently taking place at the elementary level, and it's primarily related to self-knowledge. An exploration of where are we now and where do we want to take this to is underway. There was a tentative plan to work on tying this curriculum and counseling together during the summer, but now summer projects are up in the air. We will soon have to decide what projects to prioritize and proceed with what should be temporarily tabled. And our next wellness meeting is this Thursday.
Any questions for Mrs. White? No questions? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. White. Any liaison committee reports?
Nope. I had an email, hold on. There's no meetings for the Municipal Alliance. We haven't had any meetings, but every once in a while I get email regarding, hold on, let me find it. I'm not gonna find it now. Oh, regarding resources, and there was an email from Caitlin, from Miss Cartaccio, from Jennifer Sorson, and it was just about that there's flyers of resources for like there's a virtual Narcan distribution or kits, and then about because the drug-related deaths during this time have gone up like by a lot, which is kind of scary, and it's just something that it's I guess the circumstances are not really good for people who can't get what they need with the stay-at-home orders, and you can't get to the hospital or can't get to your counselors, or even people who already had problems, it exacerbates it. So and there's a couple of flyers that are maybe I'll share them. They can put them on the website. I don't know how we do that with like how we share them out. I can't share them out myself, but there's some resources from about how to talk to young people about COVID, about the Narcan, and something about Somerset County, what our resources are in Somerset County. So I'll maybe send them to Jen or somewhere where they can be shared out, or I don't know. It was just something I saw this just the other day, so I was like, oh wait, let me mention it just in case it's something that.
I'll reach out to Caitlin. I'll reach out to Caitlin and ask her if she's got some things that I can help to facilitate sending out.
Yeah, just to be shared somewhere. So I just wanted to put it out there.
I know that Mrs. McCune wants to share a liaison report, but just if you'll bear with me one moment, Robin. Just a reminder to the public, if you are sending public comment in either via text or email, please include your first and last name. Otherwise, we cannot read the comment into the record, and also your home address. Thank you. Mrs. McCune?
I just wanted to let everyone know I attended the virtual New Jersey School Board's legislative meeting on Saturday, and Senator Sweeney was the guest speaker. And my takeaway from the whole thing was there's obviously a lot of uncertainty in the state right now, but my big takeaway was that I just wanted to thank our administration, Mr. Mercari, Mr. McLaughlin, Mr. Crute, when he's giving us legal advice, because I didn't learn that much at this meeting, and all these other districts were asking questions about all these bills and things that they were completely, surprised by. And it was all stuff that we had already gotten information on. So while it was depressing that there's so much uncertainty and no one knows what's going on in terms of how this is all going to play out, I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Mrs. McCune. That being said, that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. Ms. Fox, do we have any?
Yes, we do. We have one at this point that has a name and an address. The other one that we have, oh wait, where is it? I'm sorry, I apologize. Where did it go? Oh, I see it. Sorry about that. Elaine D'Addario, 46 Bagman Place. With Jane Costa, are any current staff being considered for her replacement, i.e. Thorpe? Or is the district going out of district for her replacement? What will the process be here? Thank you for your help in understanding what is taking place with this important district position. Sincerely, ED. The other questions have no name or address.
Okay. How do you want to handle that, Mr. Markarian?
So I can speak to the one comment. Obviously, you know, we're just accepting the resignation this evening. So I imagine tomorrow or the next day, very soon, Mr. Syatt will have our administrative vacancies posted. We'll follow the usual process of vetting any of the candidates that apply. Whether or not they're internal or external, we'll have to see what kind of response we get. With regard to the other
Mr.
public,
Markarian,
yes,
the name came through.
okay,
So they were a few more texts again from Elaine Daddario. So she just responded and told me that they had the previous comments with no name had all been from her. So I will read them because they're all from the same number. They were text messages.
okay.
So the first one was, note, teachers, Ridge Strong video was awesome. We love our educators and staff. The second one, RHS senior families have been asking about how to get their Aramark lunch money refunded if they will no longer have students in district after 2020. Could this information be distributed to the district families even in the event there are families moving out of district and or in the event that families might have additional students to transfer those monies to as well? All options explained and detailed directions given to families under these conditions of not returning to school this year. Any information directly disseminated to the community is much appreciated. The next one, I took the Narcan virtual course and it was great. And one more from Mrs. Daddario. I got my kit in the mail and was glad it was offered as I had been trying to make the in-person classes but bumped up against conflicts until now while I'm at home. Community and Crisis has the next one scheduled on their Facebook page with sign-up information. And that's it. Oh, that's it.
Fox.
Okay, so that was it for public comment? Okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Markarian, did you want to say anything else?
You want to close public comment and then I could speak to that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, if it's seeing or receiving none, we'll close public comment.
Thanks. So no, obviously that's wonderful. We appreciate Mrs. Daddario's positive feedback. I know that it's become something fun that a lot of schools are doing to try to put together just some fun videos to let the kids know that the teachers miss them and just to share some good cheer. I know we've done a couple of them. I know there are other projects in the works, so it's wonderful to have those videos as a way to spread some cheer with the school community and the students. So I actually mentioned that I think in one of my weekly or nightly messages last week, just talking about a big thank you to those staff that took the time to work on those projects with the students. So that's tremendous. We appreciate that. With respect to the Aramark cafeteria lunch program, that's something that we do have to take a look at every year, especially with the seniors that are leaving or other families that are leaving if they have any funds. So I'll work on that with Mr. McLaughlin and we can get some information out.
Okay, thank you. Then the next item is board forum. Board members?
Hey, Karen, this is
Mrs.
Tim.
Beckman?
Oh,
Oh, yes, go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, didn't get much fanfare in the personnel agenda items, but we did, approve contracts for all our BTAA administrators and in non-aligned staff like Ms. Fox, Mr. McLaughlin, and Mr. Syatt, and of course Mr. Markarian's new contract. So, in the words of Mr. Byrne, who was always looking for the strengths and weaknesses of the district, our administrative team and our leadership is undoubtedly a strength of our district. And I think we see that shining through right now. And kind of apropos of what Ms. McEwen was talking about, being advised of things coming down the pike and being prepared, especially in this situation, it's never more evident than right now. So I'm glad that our district is in good hands and we've, secured that future with these individuals going forward. So thank you.
Ms. Beckman, I think you had a comment too.
to put the one that really strong video. We loved it. It was great. It was really nice to see them, and it was kind of clever how they did it. But then the other thing was there was a comment made about, I think it was in wellness, about the teachers having these video chats with the students and only one or two kids showing up. And even if there's only one or two showing up, I hope they still continue them, because my kids have been those one or two kids in several of them. And they really enjoy working with the teachers, and they learn a lot. It's been a joy for them to keep in touch with them that way.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of trouble understanding Ms. Beckman, but I think we got the message. If I just kind of recap her endorsement for having the teachers connect with the kids on the live video opportunities, regardless of whether or not there's one or two or many more students. Sorry, Ms. Beckman, it's very garbled. I apologize. It's difficult to hear you, but I think that was the idea.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Anyone else?
I'm on the Chromebook. I'm going to go back to my Mac next week.
That explains it. Anyone else? I saw another hand. Mrs. McCune.
Yeah, I just wanted to give another shout out, this one to Jimmy, because he's done an amazing job as our student board rep and giving us updates. And I couldn't react fast enough to put any coherent thoughts together when he was speaking earlier with the report he gave. But Jenny, like the way you articulated the tension that everyone's feeling with trying to figure out how to reopen things and be safe, but also start doing things. We're all struggling with it. Everyone's in situations with, family members and worrying about it. I think there's been many conversations, at every level, whether it was at the state level when I was listening to the meeting last weekend, all the way down, to the local level of trying to figure it out. And, it's a challenge. And I guess the biggest frustration for everyone is just not knowing exactly what and when it's going to happen. And I know people are all waiting to hear about colleges and what's going to happen there and schools, and everyone's kind of in this weird situation. So I think you did a much better job articulating it than I am, but I wanted to thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Jimmy. And for all you're doing for your leadership role in the senior class. Any other board members with comments for board forum? Mrs. Korn.
I just want to say that, again, thanks to the administrators, I wanted to, jump on what Tim was saying, because I think, and from what Rob was saying, we are really well informed. You can't, for all the lack of leadership in Trenton, we are really getting a lot here in Basking Ridge, and I appreciate that. I also want to say that, the distance learning, what we put together is really good. It's excellent, I think. But I really, truly think distance learning was meant for about 2 weeks, and now we're going on like 10 weeks. And it's not only hard on the kids, it's hard on the teachers. And it's like there's like and my kids they're doing great. It's almost like it's almost hard. It's harder and harder to get motivated to go back on the computer, and not for lack of teachers trying to reach out. And it's just and it's no one's fault. It's not anyone's fault, but it's just the nature of the beast. It's not meant to be 3 months worth of distance learning. It's meant to be a stopgap. And no matter if we have the best program going, it doesn't matter because it's just how hard it is to keep it going. And the Ridge Strong video was awesome. I watched it and it was so cute and it was great seeing everyone. But I don't know about everyone else, but I'm tired. I want to see you people in person. Okay, I'm ready. I'm tired of Zoom. I'm tired of talking to people over video, and I feel like the kids are too. And it's just it's just hard, especially when your kid is very social, or, it's just hard. And it's even hard for kids who aren't social, because they might not be getting everything they need too. So, everyone has to have patience. And I don't know, I just wanted to throw it out there. Even though we're doing everything right, it's still hard to get, everyone to get it to work as well in your mind. It's like, it should be perfect, but it's dragged on so long now that it's like a schlag almost. I mean, and even talking to my sister-in-law's a teacher, and she's a special needs teacher. She's like, they've never worked so hard in their whole life, and it's like being on a treadmill you're never getting off of, and you don't feel like you're getting that much done, and so it goes both ways, like it's just not that satisfying. In the beginning maybe, but now it's a little bit, so I really hope that we get more answers and things come to, like, they give us some more direction, because it would be helpful for everybody to just have like something to look forward to, like a goal that can be met. And not always like the unknown is really hurting everybody. So I just wanted to put that out there, saying I think everyone's doing a great job. It's just the situation is not good. So that's all.
Mrs. White?
I would just like to kind of make a plea. We say here how much we appreciate our teachers and they're working hard, but for any parents, because you see a lot of stuff, and parents are posting all sorts of, my teacher did this and this is so wonderful, but the teachers aren't on your Facebook pages, and they are craving, to hear from you too. So I just think the word, like, if there's time, instead of putting it on a Facebook post, send your teacher an email and just say thank you, or my son, my daughter, they loved seeing you, or that activity you did was great. I mean, just those little words of encouragement, because we're kind of the last inning stretch to get to the end of the year, and this time of year is always in May. Is when the kids they've had enough, and the teachers are just trying to keep them going. And it's got to be that much harder for them. So I just think that, or have your child send them an email and just say thank you. I mean, we're coming off a Teacher Appreciation Week, but I think those little things just mean such a world to the teachers that I think they'd really appreciate it.
Any other board members? I just want to say a couple of things. I completely agree with what Mrs. White just said, and I can speak from personal experience with a couple of my daughter's teachers that I've had an exchange or two, and the energy that comes back in the response from a teacher it's palpable. Even though we're all, to Mrs. Korn's point, at the end of our rope with this, it's over. We're over it. We'd like to have that interaction on a real live level. The teachers really, when they respond, they are full of energy and light, and it's amazing, because everyone that I've talked to, teachers, aides, anyone in this district and other places, they're all saying the same thing. They've never worked harder in their lives, because this is just such a challenge to deliver the high quality programming that we are fortunate to be delivering here. And I've said it before in this forum, and I'll say it again. I don't think anyone's doing it better than Berners Township is doing it right now. And kudos to that team of administrators that Tim and Jen called out. We are so fortunate to have your guidance and your unbelievable work ethic. And I don't know where we'd be at without you. You're just tireless. I mean, you just never stop working. I know that as a board member, and I would love for everyone in our district to know it as well, because it's incredible the amount of time and energy and thought being put into every aspect of this effort. And although to you sometimes it may feel as though it's not exactly what you were planning or hoping, it's incredible, and it's more than we could have imagined. So we deeply appreciate all of you. So thank you, and thank you to the staff. The Ridge Strong video, I agree with everybody who spoke about it, was amazing. And I had the good fortune to happen to see the Cedar Hill self-care one, because one of the teachers at Cedar Hill sent it to my daughter because she was an intern there, and that one was also incredible and amazing, and I'm sure the others will be as well. So thank you to all the staff for that. Anyone else?
I was just going to
All
say,
right.
don't forget to show the Ridge Strong video to your graduates of Ridge too, because my daughters enjoyed seeing their teachers that they had when they were there.
I did the same thing, and they got a great big kick out of it. It was great. All right, so if we have no additional board forum comments, then I guess we're up to adjournment. Can I have a motion, please? Mrs. Korn and Mrs. McCune. All in favor? I see all eyes, Mr. McLaughlin. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Stay
Good night.
safe.